The Northern Front ignites, Lebanon's gamble to disarm. Hezbollah, while the situation inside Iran continues to dominate headlines, the conflict's center of gravity is shifting north. What is unfolding in Lebanon right now may prove to be one of the most consequential developments of the entire war. The ceasefire that ended the 2024 Israel-Hezbollah conflict collapsed within 48 hours of the broader regional war beginning, and the two are once again locked in combat. As dramatic as the renewed fighting is, it is the response from the Lebanese government that is truly historic. In the midst of the chaos, Beirut has imposed a total ban on Hezbollah's military and security operations. If someone had predicted this 2 years ago, they would have been dismissed as dreaming or intoxicated. But 2026 has been full of surprises, and this may be the most impactful yet. The myth of Hezbollah's invincibility for nearly 2 decades. A single assumption dominated discussions about the Middle East's balance of power. If anyone, specifically the United States or Israel, ever came for Iran, Hezbollah would make them pay. Tehran, using its allies in Baghdad and Damascus, spent years smuggling rockets and missiles into Lebanon. By 2024, this effort had produced the largest non-state military stockpile in history, estimated at 150,000 to 200,000 rockets and missiles. Hezbollah strongholds in southern Lebanon, particularly south of the Litani River, gave it a strategic advantage. Rockets launched from this position would have mere seconds of flight time into northern Israel, presenting an almost impossible challenge for missile defense systems. The theory went that if Hezbollah launched thousands of rockets daily over an extended period, no defense network could intercept them all. This wasn't just speculation. In 2006, Hezbollah fought the Israeli military to what was widely perceived in the Arab world as a draw, if not a victory. Israel entered that war with stated goals of destroying Hezbollah's military capability and recovering to captured soldiers. After 34 days of bombardment and ground operations, it had achieved neither. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah declared it a divine victory, a label that resonated throughout the region. Hundreds of thousands rallied in Beirut, cementing the group's status as the premier resistance movement. This perception became the foundation for everything that followed. At its height, Hezbollah dominated Lebanese politics, transforming itself into a state within a state. It anchored Iran's regional strategy by providing Tehran with a retaliatory umbrella should Washington or Jerusalem take military action. During the years of relative calm, the group used the opportunity to massively build up its capabilities with Iranian assistance. The day after Hamas's October 7th attack, Hezbollah opened what it described as a sustained but limited rocket and drone fire into northern Suez, Endor fire into northern Suez, Suez civilians for more than a year, yet stopped short of an all-out barrage. Israel tolerated this for months, but by fall 2024, the domestic pressure to act had become impossible to ignore. Then came September 2024, when Israeli intelligence detonated approximately 5,000 pagers and several hundred walkie-talkies that had been distributed throughout Hezbollah's ranks. The operation killed 42 people, wounded another 3,500, destroyed significant portions of the group's internal communications network. The psychological impact was devastating. Members who switched from pagers to walkie-talkies watched those explode as well. This was the opening salvo of an Israeli campaign to neutralize the Hezbollah threat, a campaign that moved faster and hit harder than anyone anticipated. Hassan Nasrallah, who had led the group for over 3 decades, was killed within a month, along with a staggering number of senior commanders who had survived the pager attacks. During the ensuing war, Hezbollah's rocket launches peaked at around 240 per day, significant. But far from the doomsday scenarios that had haunted Israeli planners for years. Part of this was due to the complete collapse of the group's leadership and communication systems. In the aftermath of the pager attacks, the people calling the shots were those deemed unworthy of owning communication devices just a week prior. Amid the chaos, Israel destroyed an estimated 80% of Hezbollah's rocket stockpiles and confiscated over 85,000 weapons in southern Lebanon. By November, Hezbollah signed a ceasefire on terms that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. A full withdrawal from areas south of the Litani River with a U.S. side letter recognizing Israel's right to strike if the agreement was violated. A country trying to break free. Then came 2026. Whatever fragile equilibrium had held since the ceasefire evaporated when the U.S. and Israel launched their campaign against Iran, killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei in the opening waves. The ceasefire had already been fraying. Israel had never fully stopped strikes into Lebanon, maintaining permanent military outposts on the Lebanese side of the border and conducting roughly 1,600 strikes by the start of the year. But when Operation Epic Fury began, the pretense of a ceasefire disappeared entirely. Hezbollah had built its entire raison d'etre around standing up to Israel, especially in defense of Iran. On March 2nd, just 2 days after the strikes began, Hezbollah launched rockets and drones at an Israeli missile defense site near Haifa, the first such attack since the ceasefire. The barrage was framed as retaliation for Khamenei's killing, a signal that the group still stood with its patron. Israel intercepted most of the incoming fire, and what got through landed in open areas without casualties. But unlike a single failed salvo, Hezbollah kept firing. Dozens of drones targeted the Ramat David Air Base and the Marin Air Operations Center. Rocket salvos hit the Naffa Basin positions in the Golan Heights. By March 3rd, anti-tank guided missiles were striking Israeli Merkava tanks near the border. The group was clearly still degraded from its pre-2024 position, but it remained in the fight. On March 4th, a long-range strike reached Tel Aviv in conjunction with Iranian salvos, wounding 2 people and making clear this was no mere symbolic gesture. Hezbollah may have been down, but it was not out. Israel's response was overwhelming. In a single day, over 250 airstrikes tore through Beirut's southern suburbs, the Bekaa Valley, and villages across the south. The targets included weapons depots, rocket launch sites, command centers, and communications infrastructure, including the headquarters of Hezbollah's media empire, Al-Manor TV and Al-Noor Radio. Israeli officials told the New York Times that the operation had been planned for months and could evolve into something much more ambitious. On the ground, Israel sent the 91st Territorial Division across the border after ordering nearly 100 towns and villages south of the Litani to evacuate, and called up over 100,000 reservists. The IDF also confirmed it had killed a senior IRGC Quds Force commander in Lebanon, effectively severing what remained of the Iranian Hezbollah command chain. The government strikes back. What makes this theater so noteworthy is what happened next. After decades of weakness, the Lebanese government chose to move against Hezbollah. Prime Minister Nawaf Salam's cabinet declared an immediate total ban on all Hezbollah military and security activities and ordered the group to surrender its weapons to the state. President Joseph Aoun, the former army commander elected after Hezbollah could no longer block the vote, called the decision final. Most notably, Nabi Berri, the Speaker of Parliament and leader of the Amal movement Hezbollah's most reliable political partner for decades, refused to vote against the measure. For analysts accustomed to Lebanon's political dynamics, these developments are astonishing. Go back just 2 years and suggest this would happen, and people would assume you were indulging in wishful thinking. Hezbollah has dismissed the move as unjustified. But open defiance sounds very different when you have lost your leader, most of your command structure, and now your most important political ally. The question now is whether the Lebanese government is actually in a position to follow through. 3rd time's the charm. A significant camp in Washington sees the current moment as the best chance anyone will ever have to finish Hezbollah off. Analysts have described it as a once-in-a-generation window that, if missed, may never open again. From Israel's perspective, the strategic alignment couldn't be better. Permanent Hezbollah Disarmament has been an Israeli objective for decades, but never gained traction given the constant flow of munitions from Iran and a government in Beirut that was at best the second most powerful force in its own country. The IDF Chief of Staff has stated that the goal is no longer limited to enforcement of UN Security Council Resolution 1701, but rather full and complete disarmament. However, there is an uncomfortable pattern worth remembering. Israel has been to war in Lebanon before, and it has never ended quite as hoped. The 2006 war was itself supposed to correct the mistakes of the 1982 invasion. That year, Israel entered Lebanon to destroy the PLO's operations there. In a narrow military sense, it succeeded. But the 18-year occupation that followed helped produce Hezbollah in the first place. In 2006, the idea was a limited campaign that would degrade Hezbollah's capability without creating an open-ended quagmire. Instead, the group rebuilt faster and stronger than before, using the post-war period to amass the very arsenal that ignited the current conflict. Even a severely weakened Hezbollah retains the capacity for asymmetric warfare (ED) attacks, sniper operations that could make governing southern Lebanon a nightmare for years without requiring anything close to conventional military capability. There is also the distinct possibility that crushing Hezbollah inadvertently creates another resistance group, potentially even more extreme. First and foremost, the Lebanese state is driving the push to restore its sovereignty. Backed by a president who seems determined to disarm the militants on his territory once and for all. This is the opposite of 1982 and 2006, when an Israeli occupation force and an international community with little legitimacy, respectively, were imposing order from outside. This willingness has been a long time in the making, and now that it has surfaced, it appears unlikely to disappear. To put it simply, Hezbollah's existence has devastated millions of Lebanese in recent years. The Beirut port explosion in 2020, which killed over 200 people and devastated parts of the city, occurred in an area Hezbollah controlled. The group later used its political power to cover up any potential role it had. Even as the currency collapsed and 70% of Lebanese fell below the poverty line, Hezbollah's political machine kept grinding. For millions of Lebanese, including many who had tolerated Hezbollah's armed status as a necessary evil, the port blast and its aftermath laid bare what the state within a state meant in practice. This was even clearer during the 2024 war, which caused massive destruction throughout the country, including in the capital, and displaced over 1 million people, all because a paramilitary the country could uncontrol decided to open a front against Israel on behalf of Iran. By that point, Hezbollah was no longer a group going to war against a foreign occupying force. It was a foreign embedded force going to war whether the country wanted to or not. By mid-2025, 86% of Lebanese opposed entering direct conflict with Israel to support Palestine. 79% believed only the army should hold weapons. Confidence in the Lebanese armed forces stood at 94%, even among Hezbollah's Shia base. Over half viewed Iran negatively, and around a fifth described the group's regional entanglements in explicitly negative terms. On paper, the LAF claims roughly 80,000 troops, but the currency collapse has reduced their salaries to between $50 and $100 a month. This conflict may not turn out to be the true end of Hezbollah.